Okay, I will be explaining about what is sensory registration problem. But first and foremost, what is sensory integration? Sensory integration is the organization of sensory input for use. And for sensory to register properly, it must be connected to the CNS, which is central nervous system. So when the sensory is working well, so when our sensory from all the outside stimulus are working well, it can help the children or ourselves to pay better attention or to be able to ignore the stimulus. Which means if there's suddenly a loud sound outside, someone with a sensory that is working well can ignore that sound without even the sound won't be distracting. Okay, for this is why sensory registration is important. So, for example, if a child did not register pain sensation, so the pain sensation did not, the child did not realize that what is she's feeling right now is feeling pain, he or she may not withdraw from those dangerous situation. For example, like jumping in from a high surface to a really hard, from a high place to a really hard surface, and also when touching a hot stuff, if they are touching something and they do not think that this is actually dangerous or this is hot, it can possibly burn their hands. Okay, so for sensation seeking behavior, it can be divided into two sides, which is under responsive and over responsive. So under responsive is children with unresponsive stimuli have trouble filtering out irrelevant input. That is what I said before, which when there's suddenly a loud noise, also loud noise coming from outside, children with under responsive sensation would register those loud noise. They will not filter the noise from outside, so they will be hearing everything at the same time. So for our responsive, is also known as hyper responsive or sensory defensive. This is when introduced to a sensory, the child will react often with negative emotion and action. So suddenly, because for example, if this when there's a really loud noise happening outside, the child will be frightened or they will start to cry because they were scared or yeah, something like that. They react usually to a more negative emotion. This is right now, what you're seeing right now is actually the some example of the children's sensory that could happen from the children. This one is called tactile defensive. Tactile means skin. So commonly observed, this is the most commonly observed sensory integration. Something like light touch are especially disturbing for this some kind of children. Children common response when they are having tactile defensive, they will feel anxiety, distractibility, they will feel restless, anger, tantrum, and or also fear. So tactile defensive can affect the child's ability to dress, eating, bathing, and even grooming themselves. So if a child with tactile defensive, they will be having trouble to, probably to put water on their skin, so it will cause them to, uh, you know, to have trouble to take a bath on their own. So when we take a bath, we need to rub all the dirt from our hands. So if the child cannot do that, then it will be trouble for them. Okay, gravitational insecurity is an over-responsive to vestibular sensation. Vestibular is affect our balance. Okay, so the gravitational insecure child is overwhelmed by changes in head position, movement either backwards or upwards. So when the child is being put in a place where, for example, on a bouncing ball, where their head is are going to fall backward, they will start to panic. Uh, the child will show signs of fear, anxiety, or avoidance during those kind of things. Jumping can also be one of the example of gravitational insecurity, because when jumping, our center of gravity changes from up to down. That's why we jump. But for some people who can easily jump, this won't be a problem. But for children who have gravitational insecurity, they will feel a bit they will be afraid because they are not used to the changes in gravity. Okay, other sensory responsive. Can be with to sensitive to sound, odor, taste, and this will overresponsive towards this sensory can affect children's daily life, of course. And some example, if the overreaction to sound, odor, taste, and often problematic for children with heightened sensitivity. So the more sensitive the children, it's the more troublesome for them. during when doing some task. Okay, this type of problem, like over responsive to touch and movement, may create discomfort, avoidance, distractibility, and anxiety toward the children. Okay, that's all for me. Thank you.